As far as affecting my decision or anything about the Peace Corps, the war didn't really play a role in me deciding to go into the Peace Corps and not go to the Peace Corps myself. I did have a few volunteers who I served with there were a couple of guys who actually had been in the Army before and had served in Iraq or several like other places too. And their specific reasons for going into the Peace Corps were to, as a statement saying, they had served in the Army and they didn't believe that it was the right thing for us to be doing some of the things we were doing as a country. So they wanted to go into the Peace Corps as a statement to say, peace, not war, I guess, kind of a thing is what they were going for. As far as affecting my service, the people of my country in Niger don't know too much about what's going around in the world, but they do know some of the bigger things. And every once in a while I would get asked about, why is George Bush going around the world killing everybody, whatever. And like your country's doing bad things like that. But other people would feel differently about it too. So I would get questions about some things from time to time, but not everybody thought that I was a bad person for America. I guess I don't know how to say that. But.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the Peace Corps' role in foreign policy. The Peace Corps has a split purpose that in going to other countries to assist them, they are doing good for others. And yet in doing that, then that enhances the U.S. relations with that country. And on September 11th of this year, Service Nation held a presidential summit with the two presidential candidates. And at that session this month, John McCain said he was asked, should we be giving money to countries who do not like us? He said, no. Should we be giving Peace Corps volunteers to countries that do not like us? And he said, yes. And that's the one way to show other countries the true great American spirit is by sending them a Peace Corps volunteer who can show them that. And the audience cheered. But this duality of purposes has been also a source of conflict for Peace Corps directors, presidents, and the volunteers themselves. That are we doing this to help others, or are we helping ourselves by enhancing our relations with countries and making us perhaps look good so that further relationships can benefit from that. So my question to you is, did you ever feel yourself to be a tool of American foreign policy, and did that create any conflicts for you in your service?
In response to your question, no, I didn't feel like I was a tool of foreign policy. As a Peace Corps volunteer, I think we're all, at least this is the way it is today, I don't know how it used to be, we're kind of told, we're American citizens going into these other countries. As far as I know, everywhere that Peace Corps goes, the governments of these countries ask our government for help. I don't think the Peace Corps doesn't just go into countries and be like, oh, we're going to put volunteers here and help you. The governments of those countries come to us, come to our government and ask for help, and that's how Peace Corps volunteers get sent to them. So as an American citizen going to another country like this to work and to help, we're kind of told that we're kind of an ambassador to America. So, we have responsibilities in how we act and stuff. So as far as feeling like a tool of foreign policy, no. But I was reminded that I'm an American, and everything I say, everything I do, I stick out in my village, and everybody's going to notice it. So just to keep that in mind as to what I do and how I act while I'm there.
An American overseas certainly this was my experience, is suspected of being a tool of foreign policy, whether you have any conscious awareness of it or not. And in some way, it does make you much more representative of your culture than you wish to be. And I feel that a really unsolved question. To what extent did I, in fact, represent not just a culture? Can't help that. You're going to represent your culture and your cultural goals. To what extent did that, it's always edge over into representing a political system? And I honestly don't think I can answer that.
I feel as though we were used to a certain extent. I agree with you completely, Michael, that sometimes you're used inadvertently. People accused us of being CIA spies, and we were just there skin testing for tuberculosis. So we had a big public relations dust up about that. On the other hand, well, honestly, I don't know who they are. I think they probably were the CIA, but they asked us to map out the informal power structure of the villages where we were serving. That was quite an extraordinary request, and some of us actually refused to do it, because, you know, in those days you just refused to do everything. But we just didn't want to cooperate. We felt as though that we were being used as tools. But I want to say that sometimes countries accept volunteers. They don't all voluntarily request them. Sometimes they're requested to request them by the administration who want an American presence that will do good and be sort of somewhat innocuous. But those governments can change. And a week ago in Bolivia, once again, probably the second or third time since I've been there, the volunteers were airlifted out because the government was in an uproar. People demonstrating in the streets, and the Peace Corps director, of course, couldn't guarantee their safety, which is his first responsibility. So even though you are there at the invitation of people, Peace Corps volunteers can be in very risky postings.
During our swearing-in ceremony, that's where everybody sits in a big circle and somebody from the embassy gives you the oath that's in the Constitution, except they changed the word from president to as a Peace Corps volunteer. Before we did that, the Charge d'Affaires gave us a little pep talk in which he said, "You are tools of foreign policy." That's a direct quote. And it really irritated a lot of us. And in fact, a number refused to swear, they just left. The reason we were said tools was because of the oil line. Of course, a lot of us had gone over there in sort of a symbolic protest against that sort of imperialism, and it incensed us that this guy would have the gall to say that just as we're about ready to swear in and promise to save the world. Georgia did have, I think still to some extent, a very good relationship with our administration. They loved Americans. We were rock stars when folks found out we were Americans. And they loved George Bush too. It was sort of like they viewed him as they viewed him as synonymous with Stalin. Yeah, and that was a good thing. And that was a good thing. And my nickname in my village was Little George Bush because I had drawn a map or something, and that equated me with him. And I couldn't live it down. Don't call me that. It is. So yes, we were definitely tools of foreign policy, and playing that down was no small task.